welcome everybody to the Fit and Well podcast. I am Jamie Meldrum, wellness coach at DC, and you know my co-host Angela Wood with the Flex Center at DC and OnTech. And our special guest today is Keri Young, who is a mental health nurse at Durham College and also works at the Campus Health and Wellness Center with me. So welcome, Keri.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on today, Keri. And yeah, maybe let's start with telling some students and our listeners about what mental health nursing at DC is and how you're supporting students right now.
For sure. So mental health nursing is just a focus within nursing where we work with individuals, sometimes families, groups, and even communities to assess their mental health needs. So a mental health nurse will then develop a plan of care with these individuals to meet the needs, which often includes resource navigation, maybe establishing appropriate referrals in the community or on campus if that's appropriate. And then we just monitor ongoing and as needed. So we're really and truly here in the moment and here as students may need us or as the public may need us. We're here to be flexible and go with the flow.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, just definitely a valuable part. We have an interdisciplinary team of the nurses, mental health nurses, the coaches, the physicians. We have counselors. And maybe just touch on real quick the wellness screening that you're doing right now for students.
Yep, for sure. So again, we've kind of shifted with everything with the pandemic. So instead of meeting people in person right now, we're still doing virtual care. So we have students being able to reach out and we do a screening assessment basically. So for whatever that need is, whether it be the first time you've asked for mental health supports, whether you're interested in a specific kind of service, we do an initial screening process where we kind of go through your history, get to know you a little bit, and also what brought you to make an appointment for the day. And then we discuss kind of what those options could be going forward and how to make those connections for you and give you that information if you're interested now or in the future.
Cool. Ange, you wanted to share something before I so rudely cut you off?
No, not at all. That's the hard part, right? With three people on the podcast. Now, my question was just, Keri, what delineates somebody as a mental health nurse versus a nurse? Like, what's the specialty? Like, what brought you there and what differentiates you?
Yep. So actually, Angie, do you mean me specifically or a mental health nurse in general?
Yeah, exactly. In general, yeah.
Okay, yeah, in general. So again, it's like any specialty, right? Generally, it's something someone's passionate about or they have a calling to, something that they're interested in. So as a nurse, you go to school, you end up with your degree in nursing, and then you go on to further education. So for myself, I've been certified as a Canadian mental health and psychiatric nurse. So that's for me, my journey. I was lucky when I started many moons ago in mental health care. I was right into a forensic background. So I had no specific mental health training other than the incorporated mental health education in my program. And I really learned on the job. I had some great nurses who were mentors for me and helped me hone my own skills. So that can be different for everybody. That's kind of my journey. Certain certifications, education specialties that people go into that really focuses them in that specific area.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Sounds like you know what you're talking about and you have some experience to back it up. And I think that's a great bridge to one of our topics today, which is CBT, or Cognitive Behavioural Therapy. And so, Keri, as a mental health nurse, I know part of your role is telling students about CBT and making referrals to different cognitive behavioral therapy providers. So maybe start with, what is CBT and how does it support students?
Yeah, for sure. So I could talk all day about CBT. So I will try to be really succinct about what CBT is, or cognitive behavioral therapy. So it is a short-term psychotherapy technique that guides individuals in identifying negative or distressing thoughts, which can then have a negative impact on their emotions and behavior. So once these undesirable thoughts are determined, an individual then learns the methods to challenge them, and that allows them then to replace them with more objective and healthier and often realistic thoughts. So it's just not accepting things to be true just because we think it. They're just thoughts, and how can we change them? And it gives you a process in which to do so.
Mm-hmm. And when I hear that piece around not accepting our thoughts because we can often separate ourselves in what's true from our thoughts. There's a lot of parallels to like mindfulness and just having that awareness of like the difference between what am I thinking, like what is a thought that will come and go versus kind of like what's reality or who am I?
Mhm.
And I know that there's a CBT triangle. I think it's feelings, a factor of thoughts, which affect our behaviors, and it kind of goes round and round and round, one feeding another. And
Exactly.
I know,
it's like the analogy of a snowball, right? That one, it just perpetuates and keeps going. It's a cycle, right?
And sometimes if one of those are kind of off kilter, can affect and throw other things out of whack and out of balance too. And so how might students at DC or even people in the community, what are some ways that they can get connected to CBT providers in, say, Durham region?
Yep. So there are a lot of great options. So first of all, as a nurse, I'm always going to advocate that you connect to your primary care provider. So whether that be a nurse practitioner or a family doctor, because I think it's really important, professionally speaking, that you have some ongoing kind of monitoring just to make sure that this doesn't develop into anything that needs to be kind of further assessed or kind of initiated. It's always important to let your healthcare provider kind of what's going on, especially if it's recent changes for you. So simply making an appointment, talking with your doctor, letting them know about what you've been experiencing, and then they can talk to you more in detail to make sure and do any assessment. But generally speaking, there's a lot of really great resources out there that don't require referral. So we kind of have to look at a couple of options. Sometimes the cost for people, sometimes it's not a matter of being able to afford things, and kind of the intensity at which they're looking to really explore this avenue of CBT and kind of psychotherapy. So a couple options. Referral based, you see your doctor and they may refer you to a specific, let's say there's some underlying anxiety going on. They may be able to refer you to a program that incorporates CBT to help you manage anxiety, for example. That would be covered by OHIP. Also too, you could always explore if you have benefits. You can look up on Psychotherapists Ontario, the Association of Ontario. You can look up providers that have experience and knowledge in CBT and connect and pay out of pocket or have benefit coverage that way. But the good thing is with the pandemic, the one good thing about the pandemic, I kid, but is a lot of free services have opened up to allow access because it is so beneficial and it can really help people move forward. There's a lot of great online or kind of guided delivery models of CBT. So one being kind of the basic platform where it's an online, you can register through Anxiety Canada. So anxietycanada.com, they have a program there. You can do the CBT modules free. You just simply provide an email account and you can initiate that process. It's completely self-guided and directed. You work through the modules at your own pace. And kind of the next step up from that would be through mindbeacon.com. So mindbeacon.com is that a buffer kind of between a one-to-one session through a therapist and having some guidance while you're self-directed. So you sign up, you complete an assessment, that assessment goes to a therapist within the program, they review it, and then they will pick all the material specific to you to help you work through it. And then you have kind of consult times available with that person that you can explore with them, kind of places that you're feeling challenged at or things that are working really well and you're wanting more information, and they kind of guide you that way. So those are kind of the two options. And then of course the referral basis that you can use. There's also Karea, so C-A-R-E-A. It's one of the community health centers here in Durham region. They have a lot of really great kind of CBT-based programs and groups that they run ongoing that you can look at their website and look at their virtual supports, and they have different things listed under there as well. And then here within the health center, of course, you simply call the health center, use our email or use live chat, and we'll provide that at the end, and just say you're interested in exploring some CBT options, and we can kind of help you determine what is the best approach for you and how we can get you connected.
Is interesting that you said, Keri, about the one good thing of the pandemic. But I was on a webinar yesterday, and they were talking about how many more people are accessing resources, because they need to, but also because now that it's virtual, it's reducing that stigma. I'm walking to the office, I'm going to see Keri, who's the mental health nurse. Oh my gosh, people are going to think something about me or talk about me. So I love that. Hopefully that's something like, same with our industry, that too, in fitness, a lot of things will stay virtual and we'll have both options alive. So I think that's, again, just one of the positive things that's come out of it for sure.
No, I totally agree. Improving access is always a huge thing as a mental health nurse that we come up against all the time. And I say this to many students I see, is that it challenges me as a healthcare provider within the system, that it frustrates me, kind of the gaps and the difficulties in accessing services. So the fact that that's changing, I can imagine would be very beneficial for the people who are looking for the services, as well as myself, who are trying to help those people get connected and navigate those resources. So absolutely, I agree that the virtual kind of willingness of the medical community has been a definite benefit during this time.
Speaking of barriers too, Keri, I'm wondering, I know lots of people, we know that they have barriers coming to the gym, for example, because they don't know what it's going to be like and how's it set up. So can you walk through, like somebody's coming through for maybe their first, their second, their fourth CBT, what exactly happens in a session?
Yeah, so generally the first session, again, I'll speak right now kind of during pandemic and during kind of closures and stuff in virtual support. So right now, technically, again, that initial screening appointment needs to happen within the health center. So you contact the health center, you let the person who's booking your appointment know you're looking for CBT support, and then we'll book a screening appointment. Usually lasts about a half an hour, just depending on length of conversation. And you'll meet with a mental health nurse who will walk you through all those questions about your kind of medical history, events kind of leading up to making an appointment, some family history, looking at risks too. We always want to talk to people about risks because it might be the first time they've ever reached out for whatever reason. And we certainly want people to know that these are areas we're comfortable in discussing. We want to support people with and encourage conversation in those areas, like suicide, like substance use or misuse, things like that. So those kinds of questions are incorporated. And then we kind of ask about your goals and what person's interested in connecting and improving upon, or what their areas of concerns are, so that we ensure that what they're looking for really meets those needs, right? Because it's really important within, not only healthcare, but our wellness goals, that they have to be realistic, right? They have to, what you're intending to kind of improve upon, it has to be met with the appropriate kind of interventions, right? So it needs to be realistic. And that's kind of what we do as the mental health nurses. Not only do we obtain that history, but we want to make sure that we're connecting you to appropriate resources to really match those needs so that you get the improvement you're looking for. And then you'll get connected to an appointment. If everything flows well and everything is appropriate, we'll book you through to the, let's say a community resource is the best option for that person. And we'll give them the information on how to connect, what to expect in that referral process and kind of intake process. And then we always generally offer a follow-up, at least to make sure that everything kind of went as it was discussed and as planned. And sometimes if students don't want that extra appointment, we always encourage them that if they have any barriers with accessing the information we talked about, then they can call back and we can kind of reevaluate what happened and how to get them connected in a better way or use a different service. If it's with our therapist, what we'll do is we'll get them connected with an appointment, and they have the option right now of doing either phone or virtual appointments through video. So whatever student prefers, we kind of indicate that on the appointment booking, and then that therapist will connect with that student, generally by email ahead of time, to kind of review some consents and some information about having virtual healthcare. And then you'll start your initial appointment to kind of get to know each other, discuss what your goals are and the intentions of the services you're looking for. And then it's really self-directed of what you plan for, and you work together as a team on those goals and how to best suit those going forward.
And Keri, you mentioned an important piece, which is that follow-up. It's not just a one and done and, here's your session and, good luck to you and here's some resources and all the best. But it's that important piece of like that continuity of care, that follow-up, making sure that it was the right referral, maybe even the right provider. And so maybe can you comment on, after you've made a referral to whether it's kind of like an online self-guided CBT or, to one of our physicians who then referred to, a CBT provider at maybe like Ontario Shores or a community provider, what has been some of the feedback that you sometimes get from students in those follow-up sessions about the CBT programs that they've started?
Mm-hmm. Overall, hands down, it's positive, right? It's that when we connect with students generally as mental health nurses, there's already some sense of distress level, right? They're already feeling like things aren't working, that they aren't able to kind of manage an area of their life. So CBT is, generally speaking, a way in which to give people control back right now in the moment, right? So to get them connected to a service that way and give them that control back, sometimes just that change of perspective, that it's not something external to them, right? It's not something just out there that needs to be fixed or that person needs to tell them what to do. They hold the ability to be able to make those improvements themselves. So generally speaking, after whether it be a structured program where it might be 16 to 20 weeks, whether it be whatever a self-directed program, the fact that it works quickly and it kind of takes that feeling of being in front of that mountain and where do I start? How do I get over this big, huge hurdle that seems impossible? CBT is that very step-by-step process that takes all of the guessing question work out of it. It's hard work, don't get me wrong, but it gives you a process to work through that is hands down going to help improve you. Now, that being said, sometimes we do see students who do CBT and it just doesn't fit that. So then it's a reevaluation of, okay, so then what was truly that cause? Sometimes through different process of psychotherapy, different things come up and we realize, okay, yeah, that was kind of sitting there and it was covered up by all of these feelings and emotions and thoughts and behaviors. And there's another issue that can arise. And then we evaluate and send out if that needs to be, another referral. So it's really good. It's hard work, don't get me wrong, but definitely people have said, like, thank God, because it gave me control back and now it's flexible in how it's delivered, right?
Keri, what types of issues are people generally, I know, if you're to give us your top 5, areas that people are coming to kind of fix in their life or to improve on, that CBT can help with, might those be?
I think especially in post-secondary population is definitely anxiety and depression. Those are top 2, right? For sure, we see, and we know research has shown the kind of higher population of those 2 conditions within the post-secondary population, but also to just general stress, right? Just general life stressors and managing relationships and breakup. And, it's all about those negative thoughts. So negative thoughts can be so many things, right? Also to eating disorders can be another one too. And kind of the thoughts and emotions that are out of eating disorders. And even substance use can help too, right? Substance use or misuse, CBT can be very helpful to people going through those areas, but definitely anxiety and depression are top ones for sure.
CBT can be used for a lot of different things, as you mentioned, very well-rounded in terms of a therapeutic support. Mm-hmm. But CBT also has like a partner or a cousin named DBT that has its roots in CBT. So, and I know sometimes students ask me like, hey, what are the differences? And even though I'm a coach and I'm not a therapist, I'll kind of briefly outline what the differences are. But if someone's wondering what DBT or dialectical behavioral therapy is, mm-hmm. what would be some important things to distinguish between those 2 therapeutic modalities?
For sure. So what about if we go back a little bit? We talked briefly about CBT and kind of I gave a general overview of what it is. But what if we talk a little bit more about kind of negative thoughts and kind of get to understand what that is? Because DBT really builds upon cognitive behavioral therapy. So let me go back a little bit. And when we talk about, what is negative thinking? Well, it's actually kind of a general term for cognitive distortions, right? So simply put, it's when our brain has made faulty connections, right? And it causes irrational thoughts that over time lead to negative beliefs, behaviors, and emotions within ourselves, right? And the world around us. So often these distortions in how we perceive ourselves and the world around us can become so ingrained, we simply kind of accept them to be true, right? We never really consider that it's our main, our brain filtering things in a way that perpetuates these negative views or emotions. So you can see how this becomes a cycle, right? We talked about that. You hold these negative views, your brain essentially feeds this irrational narrative and further impacts your emotions and thoughts and behaviors in ways that we don't particularly like or that distress us. So there are actually many ways that we can experience these cognitive distortions, and some common ones are kind of that overgeneralization, right? Is that I had this one really bad experience, so in the future anything that's going to be similar to that is going to be horrible. I know that if I do this again, it's going to be awful, and therefore I'm just not even going to engage in it. I will avoid that at all costs, right? Even jumping to conclusions, right? The same kind of thing applies, that you kind of predict what people feel or think about you. There's catastrophizing, where it's the worst case scenario every time, right? And any little thing has become this really big, huge mountain in life. So there's so many different ones. So when we talk about that, CBT is a way to, like I said, identify those thoughts and emotions, a way to replace them and challenge them, and then kind of ongoing monitor. These are lifelong skills that can be put into place. So DBT, it's based on CBT, but it's more suited to those experiencing extreme emotions and harmful behaviors, right? So these are especially generally during relationships or interpersonal relationships. They're really intense, and people experience extreme emotional dysregulation because of these relationships. So it focuses on mindfulness, on how an individual interacts with others, as well as within personal relationships. It enhances the ability to tolerate distress, which is a big part of DBT. It kind of goes that one step in that, these aren't just negative emotions, but sometimes they're acceptable emotions in life, and sometimes bad things do happen, and we have to be okay with that. And DBT kind of gives them a way to accept that distress tolerance. And it has a strong emphasis on emotional regulation too, and really looking at how to cope in different ways with emotion.
Like what kind of things maybe go into that, into distinguishing when someone might be getting a CBT referral or a DBT referral?
For sure. Again, it's really going to be based on a really good, solid assessment by a healthcare provider, right? Or a mental health person, whatever the individual. There's so many different kind of professions and titles of people who, both on campus and out in the community, that support people, social work, all kinds of things. So really good assessment, because it's really important, like I said, to identify what is that goal for a person, because sometimes based on that goal, regardless of diagnosis, is going to really help us steer the direction of where we navigate someone, right? But generally speaking, CBT is for someone who wants help here and now, right? It is here and now. I'm really challenged with doing these things in my life, and I just can't these just keep coming up. Whereas DBT is more in the past. This is like chronicity. This is things that have been happening for a long time or have occurred because of events in the past. So, when we talk about CBT, like we said, anxiety, depression, right? DBT is more for when we have personality disorders, for example. It can be for a lot of trauma-based things as well. Sometimes we use them in combination, right? And sometimes we start CBT and we realize, oh no, you know what? This is actually much more suited to a DBT. So like anything, right? We start somewhere, and if it's not meeting those needs, or if we see something else that's better suited, then we navigate someone that way. So, but generally speaking, that's what we're looking for is more of like intense emotions for DBT, like chronic suicidal thinking, self-harm, those kinds of things. DBT is perfect for, and CBT is, like the things we discussed about the here and now, the present issues that are going on for someone.
Part of the important piece of what you were saying too is just that there's no, and this also came up in another podcast, like there's no kind of cookie cutter. So it's not like CBT is going to be the fix all be all for everyone. Sometimes it might be CBT, sometimes it's DBT, maybe it's another modality, maybe it's a combination or a blend of the two. And something also I kind of wanted to touch on today too, and you touched on it, Keri, was that even our counselors at DC, they have those backgrounds in CBT and DBT and maybe narrative therapy. And so when students are talking with a counselor, most often that counselor will have experience and training and a background in different kinds of modalities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's my biggest thing for people is be patient with yourself. Like, oh my goodness, improving anything, changing lifestyle, changing habits, changing our ways we think doesn't happen overnight, right? Be patient with yourself. It's a journey. Go with the flow and listen to your mind, your body cues, everything around you to help you go forward. That it's a process. Sometimes, like you said, it's a combination of things. And within mental health, there's no testing, right? We don't send you for a test like we would for a broken arm and go, yep, look at that. It is anxiety. Holy moly, right? So we really kind of start with what that history is. And that's why, again, I go back to the more open and honest and kind of forthcoming you can be, it can be really scary for many different reasons, opening up to, let's be honest, perfect strangers that you've never met before, even though we're professionals there to help you with your mental health. It can be really scary and overwhelming, but the more open and kind of honest you can be about kind of the details and what's going on, the easier it makes it for us to be able to connect you to those resources to get you the support and the help that you're really looking for to really meet those needs and help you move forward, for sure. But yeah, go with the flow. Things change, things go. It doesn't mean that you're not doing it right. It doesn't mean that you're not doing it good enough. It just means things change. And isn't that life, right?
Keri, when you speak about how hard it is to open up to a stranger, even though this is what you're trained to do, and you certify constantly and to maintain your status as a mental health nurse, what do you say to people that are really worried about that judgment? I don't want to go and see Keri and tell her I'm drinking too much, I'm being sexually acting out the way that I know I shouldn't be, but I just keep doing it. Like, I don't want her to think that I'm a bad person. How do you get people to overcome those barriers so they can still be honest with you and actually just make that initial appointment?
For sure, absolutely. Again, there's so many things that go into that. It's such a layered kind of question, right? I think, again, I could talk about, I'm very passionate about mental health. It is something that I've always been all my life. So I hate the fact that we even distinguish between mental health and physical health, because it's all your health. I don't even like health and well-being because it's all one thing. Without one, you can't have balance in the other, right? So I really am a strong advocate for reducing stigma. And I know that people get tired of hearing, like, let's talk about mental health and, oh, we've done enough talking, we need to do doing, right? And they really look at the healthcare professionals and that we need to do more for people. But I also kind of throw it out to the consumer of healthcare services to say, why are you so unwilling or scared or frightened to come forward? And isn't that because of stigma as well, either self-imposed or by those around you? And if it was a friend of yours or a family member of yours who were going through those challenges, what would be your messaging to them? So why would that messaging be different than what you would tell yourself, right? So yes, I say we do a lot of talking about mental health. I think there needs to be a lot more discussion about mental health to reduce the stigma so that people don't feel afraid or scared or reluctant or hesitant or whatever the descriptor is to seek services. That needs to continue to go. And again, I push that onto the consumer too, that we need to check in and kind of be insightful as to why are we hesitant and what does it matter if the front reception asks you, why are you booking an appointment? And you wouldn't be willing to say, oh, I need to talk about my mental health versus, oh, I need to have a sexual health test or assessment. It's no different. It's all what we're here for. We are here for a reason, is because we want to help people. So things that I kind of do to make people feel at ease is I just try to be somewhat of a goofball, professionally speaking, right? Our Jamie can attest to this. Like,
well, you and I both.
Right?
Yeah, but in common.
Right, it's that camaraderie, right? We're in this together. We're both humans. Yes, I have that professional therapeutic relationship to establish, but that's my job, right? Is to make people feel at ease and feel welcome and feel in a place that they're safe and comfortable in discussing more intimate and more private parts or sides of themselves. And it's not judgmental, right? I mean, I could write books really and truly on the things I've heard from people, and it doesn't shock me because, again, I can't judge someone because I don't walk in their shoes and I don't know what that experience has been like. So I always bring it for myself, professionally speaking, how I'm able to provide that therapeutic relationship is I always treat someone as if it was a loved one to me, or how I want my loved one to be treated when they're encountered by a health professional. So I try to be mindful of that. And I certainly am always looking at language and body cues to see, okay, am I on the right track? And I check in with people, like simply asking, like, am I on the right path with you? Am I hitting the mark, or am I just like way out there? Where are we at? And checking in really helps to reassure, right? Just constantly reassuring someone that I'm here for you. It's at your own pace. And sometimes it might take more than one appointment to get that kind of comfort level going. And that's okay. That's what we're here to do, is make people know that it's at your pace and we're there to help you.
And that's awesome. Sorry, I'm going to keep keep going, Jamie, because this is my last question. I was going to ask you, but it was on the fence.
Yeah.
But I think you just summed that up too. If you're on the fence, that look at, what Keri and other counterparts, both at the Campus Health and Wellness Center and other places too, like people wouldn't get into this if they didn't want to help and they didn't have, like you, have a passion for it. So that's why I jumped in, Jamie, not to butt you out, but that was my last question, but she already answered it. So
yeah.
I'll be quiet now.
No, not at all. Because this is something I think is really important too. It's that, just because you're going to seek help or talk about options, it doesn't mean you have to do anything. We're not going to whisk you away and get you into a medical room and, do a head to toe assessment and do those medications and give you prescriptions and send referrals. That's not our job. Our job is to meet you at the point of readiness and the point of change that you're at and desiring to do, meet you at that level and get you connected. And if, me as a provider and a client don't match in what I feel professionally might be most beneficial for a person, that's okay. I'm still going to work with them, of course. And what my job is to give that kind of information and health information so that that person can make the better decision for themselves. That, maybe right now I'm not able to do all of that, but I'm willing to start here. And then as that area kind of improves, or as they've had some more time to think and consider what those options were kind of given to them, they go, you know what? It's changing that perspective, right? And giving people options and giving people the information to make the best informed decision for themselves. I can't advocate for that enough, is that I'm not here to force things on people or push them into things. It's to help them explore the options that are available to them, because I never want anybody, and I can speak for all the mental health team at Durham, is that we would never want anybody to suffer in silence. And we would never want people to linger in unwellness or in illness without knowing that there's options to feel better. So yeah, that's me getting off my soapbox now. I will leave it at that.
No, that's great, Keri. And I think just to piggyback off that a little bit is letting people know, and I think this touches on the stigma piece too, is that people don't need to reach out for help when they're already in crisis or in distress or needing help. A lot of wellness, a lot of mental health, it's preventative. It's reaching out and talking to someone, when we're feeling maybe life's good, but maybe we can just make it better. Maybe there's areas and goals that I want to work on. So it's not like, to reach out to a counselor or a therapist or a mental health nurse or a wellness coach or any kind of mental health provider. We don't have to wait until we're really needing that, and I think that can go a long way to help reduce that stigma that, we can see a provider, a mental health professional, and still be okay. It's not like saying, by seeing this person, I'm not okay.
Yes.
Of course, it's okay to not be okay. That's kind of like a catchphrase that's common now. And I think that's also really important in terms of, helping to reduce stigma. But I often will tell students that, in terms of follow-up, and I've seen it in my past as a case manager, my role here, we try to book follow-up. No, I'm good. And then, stuff hits the fan and I need to talk to someone right away.
Yes.
No, let's book something in between, or, in a week, a month, or 2 months from now, a quick check-in, because it can go a long way to help maintaining and sustaining, a good baseline or sense of mental health and wellness.
Well, and mental health has really become such a catch-all, right? And even, I refer, prior to coming to Durham College, I referred to myself as a psychiatric nurse. It began because I've been more clinical focused and more acute illness as well. So mental health is kind of a broadening of that term, right? Mental health is so many things. It's not just when, like you said, it's distress and crisis and all of this stuff. It's when you notice, I could really improve something before it gets to the point I'm overwhelmed, I can't function, I'm losing, relationships, I'm losing my jobs, those kinds of things. But that proactive kind of approach, right? So I think that you nailed it right on the head, is that it's never too early to reach out for help. Being proactive in all regards of your health is always recommended, because it's so much easier to be kind of protective than it is to be that recovery mode and get people engaged in that kind of journey, right? So again, we're here for all stages, don't get me wrong, absolutely. But I certainly had students connect because, they're new to the area and they've been doing really well. They may have had an extensive mental health kind of past, and, but their mental health has never been better for them. And because they know their history, they're, you know, somewhat concerned that could potentially happen again, they connect just for getting to know who's out there for me. What does that person look like? Where are they located? Getting those sometimes awkward first kind of appointments out of the way when they're feeling well, so that maybe when they're not feeling well, it's one less barrier for them to overcome to get the help that they need to prevent all the potential loss going on.
I love that idea.
Right?
Yeah.
So important.
And I know we're speaking lots today to kind of Durham College students and what's available to them, but last week, Keri, we had on Jeremy Greenberg from the university. So just, for those of you that are watching the podcast that are university students, that if you can refer to a previous podcast, and if you go to the Ontario Tech website, you'll see, Are You Okay? And on there, you'll find all kinds of resources. So I just wanted to make sure you're speaking to both institutions.
No,
There's
absolutely.
people around.
Yeah, and OnTech is so great too at connecting students. It's just one point of contact, and they'll get you they'll get you connected.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to put links to both sort of access points at DC at OnTech. But yeah, we'll make sure that both schools have their contact info. Yeah, any final thoughts before we wrap up on the conversation today?
I want to again thank you for having us out. I think that you know, not a lot is known about us, even though we go out and talk about mental health nursing and what it is. I'm glad that I could kind of speak to that today. And I just want to encourage anybody listening, anybody out there, you're a student, come and see us. We can help support you in whatever that looks like. And again, if you have a family doctor, don't be afraid to reach out too. You know, it's such a big thing right now, especially with the pandemic and things going on. People are not feeling their best, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean that it's anything significant, but just start having the conversation. Just start talking about how you feel.
It's free. It's confidential, you know, like all these awesome things too. And like why not get connected that are really aimed at helping people be the best versions of themselves, helping them thrive, helping them succeed in their post-secondary journey. And again, it's there, it's at our fingertips. Thanks so much, ladies. It's been a pleasure. Great conversation today, and stay fit and stay well, everyone.